a radio played in our basement so the neighbors couldn't hear our screams. They left me there with him. They never came back. My name is Jessica Green Brown. I'm from Huntington, West Virginia. I'm an abuse survivor, a domestic violence survivor, foster care recipient whenever I was also in kinship care, and I'm a licensed social worker, BSW. It started whenever I was born. Whenever I was born, and as a very young child, all the way up until 10 years old, I endured sexual, physical, emotional, mental abuse and domestic violence. Well, actually, whenever I first told, I was 9. I told the CAP program, and it took CPS 6 months to even show up. It was 6 months later. I totally forgotten I'd even reported it. And I come home clueless from school, and my dad's waiting for me at the door with a gun because I had told his secret. CPS had called my mom, and my mom had called my dad to let him know that CPS was coming and why. She wasn't home from work yet, and he met me at the door with a 44 Magnum. When my mom got home from work, she coaxed me out of the closet before CPS got there. Then CPS came. They watched my dad run at me while he was there trying to attack me right in front of them. And I still told them the truth about the sexual abuse and everything else I disclosed, despite being threatened with a gun. They left me there with him. They never came back. And they just told him he had to leave. And it took me changing counties. It took me changing schools. After my house burned down 3 months later, before I could even tell again, he beat me numerous times in that time period for telling on him. So CPS almost got me killed. I will say that. A radio played in our basement so the neighbors couldn't hear our screams. I was isolated. I was not allowed to have friends. That was enforced by any means necessary. I was 4 years old, and my dad thought I was going to ask to go play with the neighbors. And because he thought I was going to go ask to go play with the neighborhood kids, he backhanded me across the face so hard it knocked me over. And all I was going to do was ask to go out on the driveway to play. So that's just an example of how it was enforced. My dad pulled guns on the neighbors when they would pull into our driveway to turn around at the end of a dead-end street. We were sued numerous times for that. The neighbors feared him. My family feared him. Everybody was afraid of him, and nobody would get involved. They knew what was going on. Everybody knew. Because I told them. Nobody wanted to get involved. Go tell that person. Go tell that person. It took me literally going to another county and getting a surprise visit from a cop at my new school. He was on a wild goose chase because somebody had called and said something was going on. He had no idea what was going on. And I had to tell again before I got any help at all. And then even after that, my dad stalked us. And I faced off with him in the parking lot of Camden Park. It's a little, small little amusement park in Huntington. He showed up on his motorcycle. My mom and my brother were running away, and at first I was too. I had enough. I turned around and I told him, I said, get the hell away from us. I said, you're not supposed to be anywhere near us. And so to my surprise, he actually backed off. He actually walked away. He got on his motorcycle and he left. That was me at 11. Well, the first memory of my brother, I didn't meet him until I was about 2 years old. And my dad got mad at him because he cut my hair with a pair of paper cutting scissors. And he proceeded to beat the out of it, dragged him down a set of 12 stairs. His face was hitting each step as he went. It was red. I was probably no older than 3. I was not very good on the stairs because I was scooting down the stairs watching how all this played out. My mom was there. She was trying to calm him down, and it did no good. He dragged him all the way through the dining room, through the kitchen, and then he tried to drown him in the sink. When he was done, he left him in a crumpled heap on the floor and walked away. And my mom, instead of comforting him at all, she actually looked at him and told him she shouldn't have made my dad mad. So that's another example of the physical abuse. Another example is my baby brother. My dad did not want any more kids. So when my mom was pregnant with my baby brother, he kicked her in the stomach so hard that my baby brother was born with water on his brain, full term, dead. That's another example. So he murdered my baby brother. I mean, that doesn't even count what he was charged with. He wasn't charged for any of that. Sexual abuse. I felt pity for my brother whenever he was in a crumpled heap on the floor. I didn't understand why my mom told him that. But I learned a valuable lesson not to make my dad mad and walk on eggshells. There was no escape. He would pick me up by my hair, slam me against walls. He would throw anything he could get his hands on at me. He kicked me so hard whenever I was about 4 years old, I had a bruise the size of my cheek on my cheek. I don't remember why he did that, but it didn't take much to set him off. Like, I literally spilled milk. I did not have sippy cups whenever I was little. It was an open cup, and I spilled milk on my high chair. He threw me out of it and threw it over the back hill, so I didn't have a high chair anymore. It literally took spilling milk to set him off. Whenever I first shared my story, my brother, David, he actually got on there and commented about my story and supported everything that I said, and I was not raised with him. He was from my dad's previous marriage. Honestly, in the trial, it was estimated about 4 years old. I don't really know when it started. It started sometime after I was born. Well, I didn't even know it was wrong until 4th grade because it was an everyday occurrence. It was just everyday life. My dad's psychological found him to be an ingrained pedophile incapable of rehabilitation. And I didn't find that out until after the trial. I read it in the newspaper. Basically, I would come home from school every day and he would be waiting. He would send my brother out to walk the dog. He would lock him out and my mom would still be at work. And that was his time to do what he wanted to do. It was just expected every day. And I didn't even know it was wrong until 4th grade when the CAT program came, and that's when I reported it. I was like, well, I guess I have something to say. My mom really had no idea what was going on until CPS called her as far as the sexual abuse. But even after she found out, of course, my dad had told her that he was going to, if she tried to leave him at any point, he was going to chain her to a vehicle and drag her down the road. So, you have to take her mentality into consideration there. I remember my mom was in a dream world. I was no older than probably 4 or 5 years old, and she would be walking through the dining room in her nightgown, picking up lint off the floor, putting it down her gown, and doing it all over again. Her mind was out. It was gone. She wasn't even on this planet. I don't know how she functioned to go to work, but she did. She was the provider. My dad did not work. He was home all day. He did not want to pay child support for his youngest daughter from his previous family, who was not quite 18 yet. All the other ones were grown. My mom literally had to pay his child support too, $100 a month, because he didn't want to pay child support. He was 17 years older than my mom, but apparently that wasn't young enough. He was also ex-Navy. He was well trained on how to use those guns. My story never changed. From the day CPS came, it never changed, but they never came back when they first came. And the day they took me to pick up my stuff, the cop, whenever I told you about the cop, whenever I finally got some help, the social workers came and, they were going to take me to kinship care. But first they stopped across from the new house I was living in was with my parents. I said, I ain't going in there. Mind you, I'm 10 years old at this time. I said, I'm not going in there. He'll blow you away to get to me. Needless to say, they didn't go in the house. They heeded my advice and they were wise to do so. Well, I was put in kinship care, and my dad was stalking me while I was there. My grandmother met him at the door with a shotgun. Told him she would blow his brains all over the pavement if he didn't leave. But yeah, I was there probably through the summer, end of the school year through the summer. Then I went back to live with my mom again. My dad was trying to break down the back door when I went back home, and I had to call the police. My mom froze. She couldn't handle it. She panicked. Didn't know what to do, and I had to be the one to call the police. And by the time they got there, obviously he was gone. They never caught him. He eluded justice for 5 years before they caught him. I was 15 years old before I testified against him, but it took almost that long for them just to catch him. Just to catch him, my mom had to act like she wanted to get back with him and basically set him up so the cops could catch him. The jury could not come to a verdict, and then it was retried later. So after he was retried, then he was convicted, and he was given 45 to 105 years without the possibility of parole based on his psychological and what it found. He had 11 counts against him, and they were not to be served at the same time. That's how he got such a long sentence. School was my safe haven. Education was my outlet. That was where I was safe, so I excelled in school. I got my first F whenever I was in 5th grade, and all that stuff was going on, but I was also simultaneously in the school spelling bee, and I ended up runner up in the school spelling bee while all that was going on. So I missed most of middle school being moved around in state's custody. I put myself in state's custody for my own safety at the age of 13. My brother wasn't in the picture at the time that, like, after kinship care, he ended up going to the Pines in Virginia because apparently held up his ROTC class with a gun, slit his wrist, and wiped blood on the walls. So they sent him to the Pines. It's a treatment center in Virginia, and he wasn't there. But whenever I was sent home from my second foster home by CPS, my mom's fiance at the time beat the out of me. He got mad at me because I threw a bottle of vitamins at him, and he beat the holy hell out of him right in front of my mom. My mom doesn't even remember it, and it was right in front of her. That man was her protection from my dad, and nothing was done. After he got done with me, I felt like I wasn't even worthy of sleeping in a bed. Mind you, I'm 12 years old at this point. And I overdosed on a half bottle of sleeping pills. My second foster mom, actually showed up to the hospital. Whenever I was in there, she heard it over the police scanner, and she said, I know it's got to be her. She knew. She showed up, sure enough, it was me. She was there to comfort my mom whenever I was dying in the hospital. My heart stopped. They called the chaplain in. And my mom's fiance at the time, the one that had beat out of me, actually told my mom she just let me die. Went and cheated on her that night. After that, I put myself in state's custody because I heard they couldn't hit you. And in state's custody, nobody ever hit me. I was good with that. I remember the prosecuting attorney coming to prepare me for my testimony. I was like, I don't need preparation. All I have to do is tell the truth. And I said, I know what happened. So that's the only prep I got. I had a victim impact statement written, and I read it in front of the court with him sitting right there. I wasn't afraid of him after the age of 11. Actually, I'm not sure I was afraid of him after third grade. Something changed in me in third grade. I'm not sure what it was, but my mentality changed in third grade. I remember distinctly. My mentality went from fear, what are you going to do, beat me, to a challenge. I didn't care anymore. The reason I testified against him wasn't about me. It was to protect everyone else. He couldn't hurt me anymore, if that makes any sense. I knew he could never hurt me again, and the damage he had done couldn't be fixed. But I knew my testimony would protect other people. The turning point for me was whenever I went to the group home that I lived in. I spent 4.5 years there in Golden Grove Group Home. That was the only safety and stability I knew in my childhood, was that 4.5 years there. They're the ones that enrolled me in college. They're the ones that encouraged me to go to college, and they're the ones that believed in me that I could finish college and go to college and, have a future beyond. I wanted to go to junior college, quite frankly. But I actually graduated from Marshall University with honors. My senior thesis was over 400 pages on the correlation of between domestic violence, child abuse, and animal abuse. And it was sent to the president of Marshall. And I graduated with a 3.34 overall GPA. It was a far cry from where I started in remedial math. Well, I'm into a lot of different things now. I'm actually going to get my master's degree hopefully next year. I'm applying now. To go get a dual master's degree in public administration and social work. I'm studying a lot of different things as well. Well, as far back as I can remember, my dad was abusive. He was very volatile, very violent, from a belt to a switch to throwing random stuff, kicking, punching, hitting, picking me up by my hair, slamming me against walls. He actually would put my nose up against a wall, pace behind me, and slam my nose up against that flat wall and tell me not to cry because it didn't hurt. He literally pulled mattresses off the bed to get to me whenever I would hide under the bed. Whenever I was 4 years old, my dad actually was going to keep me there and was going to make my mom and my brother leave until I started bawling. I was no older than 5. I was in kindergarten. I remember that. As far as threatening us with guns, that was really actually quite awful. Well, the main one I remember is whenever I got home from school and he was pacing back and forth and he had that .44 Magnum in his hand cocked. And I ran and hid in the closet. That was before my mom got home. My brother wasn't home from school, nothing. It was just me and my dad. I was terrified. And CPS betrayed me big time. They me by doing what they did. Or should I say lack of what they did. I have 2 compressed vertebrae in my spine. I have a place in my elbow pops like it just did. It pops in and out of place. I don't have any feeling in my scalp even now, where he used to pick me up by my hair and slam me against walls. Like the last time he beat me, I can tell you about that too. It was just before I told on him the second time. There was a big storm that day. It was a Friday, and the school wouldn't let us leave unless a parent came in and signed us out. My dad was picking me up from school. My mom was at work. So he had to come into the new school I was at, and sign me out. He accused me of trying to get him in trouble. He chased me all through the house. He cornered me by the basement door, and I was crouched down like this with my arms crossed as he punched me in the head. I was 10 years old. I had my first heart-to-heart talk with my mom that day, and I told her I wasn't going to stay there. She had a DUI. She had to go to jail on the weekends. It was a deal she had worked out so she could keep her job, basically. She had to leave for the weekend, and I would have been left with him alone, and I refused. I said I was going to go stay with my grandmother, and she was like, you'll have to ask her. I was like, she won't turn me away. I went and stayed with my grandmother that weekend, and I knew she wouldn't turn me away. She didn't. And I told her what was going on. She told me to tell the school the next morning after I had stayed with her, which would be Monday. That was simultaneously the same day the cop on the random goose chase showed up at the school. I couldn't muster up the courage to, just go tell somebody after what I'd already been through. But that gave me an opportunity, and I spilled the beans as soon as he asked me what was going on. I finally got some kind of help. And the teacher that I had at the time, she took a special interest in me too, and she was very supportive of me at that time. I still talk to her as well. Well, I want to use my story to encourage other people to want to do more, to be more, to basically dream bigger, chase their dreams. Because I know a lot of people in foster care don't want to dream. They think there's nothing out there to dream. If I would give myself advice, and I actually wrote an article about it, it would be to dream bigger than what I did. Because I honestly didn't think I would live past 25. Whenever I was 18 years old, I did not think I would make it past 25. And to me, my life pretty much didn't matter. I changed over the years as I grew up and stuff like that. But, college helped a lot. It really did. It expanded my horizons quite a bit. I was depressed. I was angry. I was unable to really communicate a lot about my feelings or anything like that because I didn't really know what words to use. It was really a tough time. The only way I knew how to express myself was poetry. And I had 13 poems published by the time I turned 18. One of them was A Child's Hell, Dying Inside. So, that gives you some kind of idea of the subject matter. Healing is a journey, and it's different for everybody. We all heal in our own time and in our own way. So I wouldn't really say there's any particular advice I would give on how to heal other than get creative and find what works for you, because it's different for everybody. And while that's not exactly an answer, it does open up the door for exploration. Trial and error. A lot of times what works for one won't work for another, but maybe some combination does. My brain had to basically heal itself. And whenever I worked a year for CPS after I got out of college, and I'm actually legally disabled now because my brain shut down in 2009. I actually was able to retrain my brain. I couldn't even write whenever my brain shut down, but it was able to heal that way. I experienced sexual assault. So whenever I was re-traumatized, it was probably and a half later, my brain shut down. I actually wasn't really supposed to heal. I'm surprised I have healed up as much as I have. I require medication now, but despite the fact that I require medication, I still have a lot of things that I'm doing to try to help other people and everything else. So I guess it just depends on where your heart is. I'm writing an autobiography. I'm studying Spanish, Hindi, French, and Arabic for the law school admissions test. I already told you I was I was applying for the master's program at Marshall for social work and public administration. But I also found an opportunity for a Congressional Leadership Academy opportunity. It's a fellowship. I volunteer for Foster Kids United. I actually finished the Women Igniting Change program too. The key thing I want people to remember is no matter what happens in life, you can rise above it. What I had to do was I had to put responsibility where it belonged. That's a heavy burden, to take responsibility for somebody else's actions that have been projected or put on you. That's a lot of burden to bear, and it steals somebody else's happiness. And I refuse to allow that to happen for me and my joy to be stolen, or my future.